Most criminals do their best to hide the fact that they are the ones who are guilty, often keeping their misdeeds secret from family and friends for years on end. Others feel the need to confess right away, and often take to the internet to tell the world of the crimes they've committed. Number 5. In 2012, 28-year-old Amber Koplin and her boyfriend David Kalloch were involved in a car accident caused by Kalloch while he was under the influence of alcohol. He was arrested, but Amber tried to take the blame for the accident and bailed him out. Once he was out of jail, the couple fled to the East Coast to evade the law. 2 years later, Amber seemed to be getting her life back on track, while Kalloch was still struggling with alcoholism and a violent temper, and was thoroughly disliked by Amber's friends and family. A friend of hers would later tell the sheriff's office deputy that although she allowed Kalloch to live with her, Amber had been planning to break off their relationship for some time, but she felt guilty that he had nowhere to go. Then on the 4th of November, 2014, police in Port Orchard, Washington were called to Amber's home after her son had found her strangled in bed. Suspicion immediately fell on Kalloch, who'd fled after stealing her car. Her son would later tell police that he heard the couple arguing loudly the night before. An hour earlier, an anonymous 4chan user, later found to be Kalloch, posted pictures of Amber's body to the site, saying, quote, "Turns out it's way harder to strangle someone to death than it looks in the movies." At 6:20 a.m., he sent a text to a friend that read, quote, "You'll see me in the news. There will be no more me. You'll read about it. That's all." He then continued to post on 4chan, saying that her son will be home from school soon and that he would phone the police. He said that he bought a realistic-looking BB gun, which he would point at police when they found him, and he hoped that they would end his life. Amber's car was found the following day, but Kalloch was nowhere to be seen. He would eventually hand himself over to Oregon police and was charged with first-degree murder. At his trial, he told jurors that since they drunk more than a half-gallon of vodka, he only had vague memories of the time between Amber's death and his arrest, including having one of his hands around her throat. He was found guilty in 2017 and was sentenced to 82 years in prison. Number 4. In August of 2013, 26-year-old Jennifer Alfonso from South Miami was exchanging messages with a friend on Facebook after she'd gotten into an argument with her husband, Derek Medina. In the messages, she said that she suspected that he may be cheating on her, and that she was extremely angry at him. One of the messages read, quote, "I need to calm down because I feel like I'm about to explode." On the 8th of August, Medina traveled to South Miami Police Station and told police that he was there to hand himself in, stating that he'd killed his wife and that they could find her body at his home. After taking him into custody, police went to the property and found that Alfonso had been shot multiple times and that she'd passed away. They would later learn that around the time of the incident, Medina had posted a photo of her after the shooting, adding the text, quote, "RIP Jennifer Alfonso. I'm going to prison or death sentence for killing my wife. Love you guys, take care, Facebook people. You'll see me in the news." He told police that they'd gotten into an argument that morning, and he'd pointed his firearm at her. She then walked away from the argument, but returned a few minutes later to inform him that she was leaving. He said that he followed her into the kitchen to confront her, but she began punching him. He then went upstairs to retrieve his gun, and she responded by grabbing a knife. He claims to have grabbed the knife away from her and put it back in the drawer, prompting Alfonso to punch him again, and he fired the weapon at her in self-defense. He says he then changed his clothes, traveled to his family's house, where he told them what had happened before handing himself over. At his trial, he claimed to have committed the murder in self-defense, but he was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Number 3. On the 6th of September, 2016, Earl Valentine started a Facebook live stream while driving his car. As he glanced at the camera while focusing on the road, he stated, quote, "She lied on me, had warrants taken out on me." He told the camera early Tuesday as he divided his gaze between the phone and the road. "She drugged me all the way down to nothing. I loved my wife, but she deserved what she had coming." He continued, saying, quote, "Pleasure knowing all y'all. I've been very sick for months, and this is something that I could not help, so I don't know if I'm gonna make it where I'm going, but if I don't, I wish all of you a good life." He was referring to his ex-wife, Keisha Valentine, who'd moved to North Carolina 9 months earlier to get away from him due to his abusive nature. She'd been granted a restraining order which lasted for 12 months, but it expired a month before Earl kicked down the door to her house, marched into her bedroom, and shot her in cold blood. The couple's son was awakened by the commotion and he confronted him, but he too was shot. Before he passed away, he managed to call 911 and inform them of what had happened. The FBI and U.S. Marshal Service launched a manhunt for Earl from Virginia to South Carolina. And at one point, Police Chief Taylor Bartholomew managed to get in contact with Earl, but he had no remorse for what he had done, and stated he was on his way to end the lives of his in-laws. 2 days later, he was tracked to a motel located in Columbus, South Carolina, about 280 miles away. After being surrounded by marshals, he decided to end his own life by turning his firearm on himself. Police later stated that if he had been taken into custody alive, he would have faced a charge of first-degree murder for the shooting of his son. Keisha survived, but is now bound to a wheelchair as a result of the attack. Number 2. On the 3rd of April 2017, Aguero Hassan and his girlfriend, Melinda, had an argument via text message that resulted in her ending the relationship. Hassan then traveled to her apartment to try to talk to her, but upon his arrival, he was confronted by Melinda's uncle and her mother's boyfriend, and a physical altercation broke out. Police were called and he left, knowing that if they were to patch things up, it would be tough going. On the 2nd of May, Hassan would create a long post on Facebook in which he explained that over the next few months, there was no contact between the two, but they would eventually start texting again. Melinda agreed to meet with Hassan to talk on April 28th, and they managed to make up. As he was about to leave, he says that Melinda asked whether he'd been with any other women during the time that they were broken up, or on any other previous occasion. He admitted that he had, feeling that he needed to be honest, but this sent her into a rage. She started crying and slapping him, and the slaps eventually turned into punches, and he told her that he was sorry, but if she didn't stop, he would have to do something. She didn't stop, and he pushed her harder than he meant to, causing her to fall against a sink. He claims that he tried to apologize, but she ordered him to leave, and when he asked her for a hug, she grabbed a knife. He initially thought that she was just going to use it to get him to leave, but she lunged at him with the knife, aiming at his face. He tried to grab the knife away from her, but after sustaining cuts to his hands, he says he lost it and grabbed another knife and hit her with a blind rage. He claims that he thought she'd passed out, but when he saw that she was bleeding, he panicked and ran. The post further states that he didn't know she died until the following day, and that he had no intentions of ending her life, but that he was just protecting himself. He included screenshots of a text message conversation between them, as well as photos where they were together. On the 28th of April, he was seen stealing the number plate from a car in a Walmart parking lot and placing it on his own vehicle. He would eventually be arrested in San Antonio, Texas on the 11th of July and is awaiting sentencing. Number 1. In April of 2015, Amanda Taylor took to Instagram and created a post that shocked her friends and followers to the core. Her friends knew that she'd been going through a tough time after the death of her husband, Rex, who struggled with depression and drug addiction, but they never thought that she would be capable of killing. Amanda and Rex met while they were in school in Virginia. She dropped out when she fell pregnant, and the couple would get married shortly after. But their relationship was a strange one, with both of them having a fascination with violence and being in the habit of writing to serial killers who were incarcerated. Amanda placed the blame for Rex's addiction squarely on the shoulders of his father, Charles, who'd introduced him to prescription medication when he was 15 years old. As he fell further into addiction, she told him that she didn't want drugs around their children, and they separated in 2014, with Rex moving back in with his father, where he unfortunately ended his own life. Amanda was crushed when she learned about Rex's suicide, and she would later attempt suicide on their shared birthday, March 27th, at his gravesite. She was unsuccessful, and she recovered in the hospital, being released despite objections from herself and her mother on April 1st. 3 days later, Amanda and her friend, Sean Ball, traveled to Charles's home to collect money that was intended for her children for Easter. She entered the house where Charles was sitting on his sofa and waited until exactly 3:27 p.m., symbolizing their shared birth date, before stabbing him multiple times and ending his life. She and Sean fled the scene after taking money from Charles's wallet, and she created an Instagram post which read, quote, "Everything I did was for the right reasons. I stabbed my father-in-law to death because he destroyed my husband. I wasn't the perfect wife, but this was one last good thing I could do." She then posted to Facebook saying, quote, "I proudly did this for Rex." She would later add another Instagram post indicating that she was about to commit suicide to join Rex in the afterlife. She then turned the gun on Sean, but he survived, and Amanda was arrested soon after. She would eventually receive a life sentence in prison. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.